Before we begin, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our breakdowns here on Worldline Analysis. Today's background music is Cold Horizon Pulse. Did General Motors really think it could walk away from Canada without consequences? Did the company believe it could shut down an entire factory, lay off over 1,200 workers, keep taxpayer-funded subsidies, and return to Detroit as if nothing happened? Whatever GM expected, what happened next shocked Detroit more than any tariff threat ever had. On October 21, 2025, GM announced a permanent shutdown of the BrightDrop electric van line at the CAMI plant in Ingersoll, Ontario. Over 1,200 workers lost their jobs, not temporarily, but permanently. This came after GM had already halted production in May, plunging a town of 14,000 people into economic chaos. But Canada's response wasn't angry press releases or diplomatic letters. Instead, the government acted like a country that had been betrayed. Just 3 days after the shutdown, Ottawa made a move that rattled GM and sent lawyers scrambling. Canada cut GM's tariff-free import quota by 24%, meaning almost every GM vehicle brought into Canada from the United States would now face 25% tariffs. And GM wasn't alone. Stellantis, which had moved Jeep production to Illinois, took an even harder hit. Its tariff-free access was cut by 50%. This wasn't political theater. It was targeted, deliberate, and precise. It was Canada saying, "You broke the deal. Now deal with the consequences." If you think companies that accept billions in taxpayer money should keep their promises, hit like. Because what Melanie Joly did next was exactly what defending workers looks like. Rewind to why this happened. The roots of this crisis go back to 2022 when GM received billions from Ontario and Ottawa to retool the Ingersoll plant for electric vehicle production. The BrightDrop van was marketed as the future, high-tech, job-creating, and central to Canada's EV ambitions. GM took the money. Then in April 2025, the company hit pause, claiming weak demand. Workers hoped it was temporary, but by May, production fully stopped. More than 1,200 people were laid off. The union tried to stay calm, but months of silence followed. For workers, benefits disappeared, paychecks dried up, and uncertainty grew. This wasn't just another factory. This was Canada's first full-scale EV plant, a symbol of the country's transition to green manufacturing. GM walked away from that commitment. Ottawa didn't react immediately. Instead, it watched, waited, and prepared its response. And when GM officially announced the permanent closure on October 21st, the government was ready. Earlier that year, Canada had quietly created something called the Auto Remission Framework. It works like this. American-built vehicles entering Canada normally face 25% tariffs. But if automakers invest in Canada and keep workers employed, they get a tariff exemption. Break your commitment? You lose the exemption. It's a carrot-and-stick system built directly into trade policy. GM broke its commitment. So on October 23rd, the finance and industry ministers issued a cold, clear statement. GM and Stellantis acted against their commitments to Canadian workers. And then Canada followed through. GM's tariff-free quota was slashed. Every US-made GM vehicle imported into Canada now costs dramatically more. Stellantis got hit even harder with a 50% reduction. Joly also sent formal letters warning both companies that breaking commitments could trigger legal action to recover government funding. And she issued GM a 15-day ultimatum. Present a real plan for a new model at the CAMI plant, with timelines and commitments, or face permanent consequences. This wasn't a suggestion. It was enforceable policy. The moment tariffs hit, GM realized it had no backup plan. Bright drop vans were supposed to come from Canada. Dealers in the US were already low on supply, so GM tried importing more vehicles from American factories. But now every one of them faced a 25% tariff. A $45,000 vehicle suddenly cost $56,000 to bring into Canada. Dealers couldn't absorb that. Customers walked. Inventory piled up. Think of a GM dealer in Ohio. Customer orders stacking up, sales targets looming. And suddenly GM cars cost more because the company broke a promise in Canada. This wasn't theoretical. It was already happening. Stock markets weren't reacting to a simple mistake. They were reacting to a structural error. GM underestimated Canada's leverage. Ironically, Trump's trade war was meant to bring jobs back to the US. Instead, American automakers ended up punishing each other. GM abandoned Canada, and American consumers paid higher prices as a result. Every day of tariffs cost GM millions. Suddenly, restarting production in Ingersoll looked cheaper than absorbing indefinite penalties. To understand why this mattered, imagine one worker, a single mother in Ingersoll who worked at CAMI for 12 years. Mortgage, 2 kids, benefits tied to her job. She trusted GM. Then she was laid off in May, temporarily, they said. She held hope. She budgeted carefully. She waited. Then October came. Permanent closure. No new model. No timeline. Her pension? Seniority? Benefits? No answers. Meanwhile, groceries cost more. Rent didn't fall. Bills piled up. This is why Canada fought back. The turning point. Here's what almost no one predicted. Just 3 weeks after tariffs hit, the industry began shifting. Ford started reviewing its Canadian footprint. Stellantis replaced its Canadian CEO, a sign the company was re-evaluating its strategy. GM quietly reached out to Ontario, asking about new opportunities at CAMI. Supply chain managers realized something fundamental. With 25% tariffs, GM's costs rise 15 to 20%. With Stellantis losing half its tariff relief, margins shrink. Now, maintaining Canadian production was cheaper than abandoning it. Unifor began receiving calls, not only from anxious workers, but from executives asking what they needed to do to fix the situation. That is leverage working exactly as intended. A new era for Canadian sovereignty. For decades, Canadian workers were told to accept less because companies held all the leverage. Give us subsidies, or we'll move to Mexico. Cut wages, or we'll shift production south. But that era is ending. Mark Carney's government has been building a new economic strategy, from defense investment to major project coordination, all designed to reduce dependence on American corporate decisions. The message to automakers is simple. Commit to Canada and we support you. Break your commitments and consequences are automatic. This isn't anti-business. It's pro-worker, pro-sovereignty, and pro-accountability. Every multinational took notice. Aerospace, tech, pharmaceuticals, energy. Suddenly, Canada became the place where government actually enforces corporate agreements. In a global race for manufacturing, that clarity is rare and valuable. What CAMI represents. The Ingersoll plant is more than 1,200 jobs. It symbolizes whether Canadian workers matter, whether corporate promises carry weight, whether Canada will let companies take subsidies and walk away. Jolie's 15-day deadline told GM produce a real plan, or tariffs stay forever. If GM delivers, tariff relief could be restored. If not, penalties remain. And here's the most important part. The strategy is working. Meetings were scheduled, executives returned, companies reconsidered their positions. The old era of corporate impunity is cracking. Canada is no longer operating as a branch office of Detroit. It's acting like a sovereign nation with real leverage and the will to use it. If you understand the importance of what Canada just demonstrated, if you see how workers were defended instead of abandoned, then make sure you subscribe, because this is only the start of how Canadian economic strategy is changing. Thanks for watching Worldline Analysis. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we release new content.